So you know what I mean when something isn't off, but it's also like not on? Take a person, for example. On paper, everything looks super good. This person you're engaging with is saying all the right things. This could be a job, a friendship, a relationship, whatever. Everything looks fine. And your logical mind is like, oh, this is perfect. Like, I don't see the issue. I physically don't. And yet something in the back of your mind is like, I feel an issue, you know? And I kind of want to talk about that because I think part of this, you can take sort of the conventional route, which is like self-sabotaging. And I think there could definitely be some truth to that. And that can be a tough thing to decipher. Like, is this me self-sabotaging? Are these fears coming up right now that I have to work through and process and feel? Or is this intuition that I'm picking up on? Is this something deeper that logically I haven't seen any proof of yet, but something that I can just feel? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know that I have a good answer for the difference between the two, other than if you sit with it long enough, if you do process it and feel it and keep coming back to it, I think that truth inevitably does come up the more you continue sitting with it and processing it. And what I mean by that is like, if there is some sort of uneasiness about a situation or a person, as bad as it is, you kind of have to sit around and play around with that to decipher which it is. Is this you self-sabotaging? I.e., is this you recreating a certain pattern, a certain dynamic, manifesting those same fears over again? You creating past situations, recreating past situations out of the one that you're currently in, which is possible, right? Or is it intuition? Is it something that you're picking up on? Something that could probably happen, an issue, a red flag, right? Something like a misalignment. And I think at the end of the day, they're kind of one and the same, you know? Because if we talk about intuition, right? Intuition, I think, is you becoming aware of the energy within the dynamic, right? So, for example, if that's you picking up on red flags, that's your intuition, but now you have an option about what to do with that. And if you were to self-sabotage, I think you take a more egoic 3D approach, as in maybe you run away from the connection, maybe you get really anxious and try to control and get answers, right? It's not faith-based, it's not trusting. It's those fears coming up, you know? And were you to sit, even if that intuition was true, you always have the ability to rewrite the story, in my opinion. So part of it's intuition, yes, but that's you picking up on old patterns with yourself, right? It's old things you've created, and this has the opportunity to become that again if you don't heal through it. That's what manifestation is. It's the universe constantly giving us feedback and saying, do you like this? Do you want to keep being this person? Is this the reality you want to keep creating? I don't think personally we're punished for our sins. I think we're punished by them. I think that God, the universe, source, our higher self, all that is reflective. I think it's a mirror of who we are. So sins, for example, are lower vibrational energies. I think of course I don't have a quote, but maybe I can try to find the study that was done, but basically when they measure different frequencies of different emotions in the body, like lust, for example, greed, fear, the sins are lower vibrational energies. And I don't think, this is personal, I don't think that God is some external being. I think it's more so the way it works with ourselves. That God is experiencing itself through us, and those sins get reflected back to us, which appears as punishment if we're hanging out in those sinful energies, those frequencies, those dynamics. And, you know, I think kind of coming back to like the pattern sort of things, we're constantly getting that feedback, and we constantly have the opportunity to evolve and to elevate. And that, it's like all these things kind of connect, and that in a sense is manifestation, because it's giving you that feedback and saying, Are you going to elevate this time? Your intuition is telling you this is playing out in a similar way that you've seen before. These same red flags are starting to appear. How are you going to behave? Are you going to get so panicked that they're happening out of fear so that it actually manifests? Like, are you going to clench up and contort, or how are you going to act? Or are you going to say, are you going to allow that intuition to come up, become aware of it, feel it, understand why it's there, heal through past situations maybe you haven't processed yet, acceptance first, excuse me, and then decide how to shift it, because manifesting is shifting our patterns. It's healing and shifting our patterns. So when we talk about, is this my intuition picking up on something that's misaligned, or is this me manifesting a repeated outcome? I think they're kind of one and the same. You know what I'm saying? In that same sense, I think we can always change the story. I really do. But it's sort of ironic because in some sense, in order to change the story, we have to let go of the thing we want, right? So, for example, if you are engaging with a specific person, we'll use romance as an example. You're getting these intuitive hits, these red flags are coming up. You say, okay, you've healed, you've processed, right? And you say, I'm choosing something else. I'm rewriting my story. This is what I'm manifesting. While I don't think it's impossible to manifest that person to change, I think we can absolutely do that. In order to do that, you actually have to mourn the loss of that person, And that's what's sort of ironic about it, is you have to level up your standards, and that's part of manifestation, is releasing control of how it comes. And it may come in the form of a different person. It may not, but because like if we talk about SPs specifically, that a person, if you're to change a person, right, in your reality, if you're to change who this person is showing up as in the connection, the new person you're aligning with isn't them. And I think when you put it like that, it makes it a little bit easier to understand. You're not changing a person, you're literally realigning with a new identity. Now, whether that identity comes through their vessel or a different one, I don't know. And that might depend on your personal beliefs. If you truly don't think someone can change, it's possible that's kind of the outcome you're faced with. But if you do want them to change, ironically, you sort of have to let that go. And so that's sort of what I'm getting at, is when these sort of intuitive hits come up, part of the lesson, part of the rewriting your story might be to maybe not entirely cut off the situation, maybe to entirely cut off the situation, but in some capacity to revoke access, right? To no longer entertain that state of person, that energy, and like one of two things will happen. And I do think you have full control over this, but it's kind of a dicey thing, the way the universe works, right? You can do your part, but then it's going to do its part. If you want a person to change, you have to let them go, because you no longer align with that person or being. It's somebody else that you're aligning with. It's a whole new identity. You literally have to cut off, at least energetically, you have to cut off that person as they are and say, I no longer tolerate this. I no longer engage with this. Not in like a pushing against way, but like a knowing way that like, okay, I understand the purpose that this served. I understand what I was here for. This is what I'm rewriting. This is the energy I'm entertaining now. And I'm setting that aside. And if that means the loss of this person, then so be it. So I think that's where it's interesting, is like, if these red flags come up, part of the thinking is like, these are messages that it's misaligned. But that doesn't mean that it can't necessarily be aligned. It's just the way that you two are engaging together, or rather you're engaging with yourself in this connection currently, right? Because it is all you. Like, they're a reflection of you. If you want them to show up differently, you have to show up differently, right? So it's interesting. It's kind of a mix of both things, but I think coming back to it, that can be one of the lessons, is even if we talk about sins or lower vibrational energies, like why, like really doing that reflection and saying, why why am I tolerating this? And like, why is this situation comfortable for me? Why is this okay, right? Because there's probably more to it there, you know? And sometimes we can actually get an egoic hit from people or from jobs or from situations, even though it's not feeding our soul. And that can hold us back in a lot of ways. And we can feel that in subtle ways, the subtle misalignment. And until you're willing to leave it, it's not going to realign. It's not going to align with that. You have to align with your higher self first, and then everything else is going to meet you where you're at. You know, you can't expect things to change first. And, you know, part of that does come with walking away. It's like, again, coming back to we're punished for our sins. Like, what are you going to entertain? What are you going to engage in within your reality? Because that's going to be reflected back to you. It's totally up to you. You have the choice to engage with these lower density things, but know why you're doing that, and decide whether that's fruitful, right? You might be entertaining, you know, a connection, for example, that you know is not aligned within your soul, you know is not your soulmate, but it's fun for now. You know, you're enjoying yourself, you're having fun. And first of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that there's absolutely time and a place to do that in an aligned way. But I think you'll know in your soul when it's not that anymore, and when it's more of a crutch and it's kind of holding you back. And that's partially intuition and it's partially manifestation, right? There's the reality we're presented with, the feedback, and then there's that choice, you know, of what we do then. And then, you know, we get to rewrite it. So yeah, I would say, like, moral of the story is all we can do is really pay attention to that feedback, pay attention to when we feel those subtle misaligned hints, because on paper it might all make sense. You know, logically in the mind, you say, I'm getting X, Y, and Z, I'm getting this amount of pay, right? This person's giving me attention, they treat me right? But in your soul, there's just something missing. That's a lesson too, you know? So pay attention to your reality. You always have the choice to change, but we have to change in order for reality to change, for God to change. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.